We are now just a few short hours away from the biggest Springbok test of 2025. It is, of course, the massive rugby championship clash at Eden Park in Auckland. The Boks up against the All Blacks at just past 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Welcome back to the Inside Pass. This is News 24's dedicated rugby podcast, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that game, crossing live to Auckland, where we've got Khanyiso Tshwaku, who is in the stadium for us tomorrow. I've got Herman Mostert back with me in studio. Morning, Mostert.
Morning, Lloyd. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, man. A lot to discuss. Obviously, the team selection was yesterday, and the initial big talking point was the inclusion of Kolisi at number 8. We knew that number 8 was going to be the talking point because we didn't quite know who was going to play there. We understand that Kolisi is not quite 100% fit. That's what we're thinking. But he's picked, but not captaining, and Jesse Creel captains instead. You spoke to News 24 columnist, former Springbok coach Nick Mallett, who discussed this very issue and gave his views on Sia not captaining but still playing. That column will be appearing on News 24 on Friday afternoon. But what can you tell us about what Nick's views were on Sia playing but not captaining?
Yes, I mean, I guess the issue was whether it's a surprise or not that your national captain or your regular captain gets picked, but he's not the captain for this game, which is obviously the biggest game that the Boks are going to play this year. So the question was whether it's a strange call or not, and Nick says he was slightly surprised by it, but it's not a big issue for him. He says Rassie has always been a guy that has a big focus on a strong leadership core in the squad. I mean, he's given the captaincy. Obviously, Jesse's the captain tomorrow, but guys like Damien de Allende, Peter Steff, Ibn Etzebeth, those guys have all captained before, and it's more a thing of the load is shared. You know, the captain is almost a facilitator in the team, like the guy that engages with the referee, those sorts of official type of things. But it's almost like every guy is a captain in his own position. So Nick doesn't see that would be any issue tomorrow. He also said it because Kolisi was not going to be playing this week, and they weren't going to risk him because Jean-Luc Deprez was supposed to start at number 8. That meant they had to pick Kolisi, which I guess is obviously a bit of a risk because I don't think he's 100% fit.
No.
He's not going to play for more than probably 40-45 minutes. He says because of that, and obviously the Boks know in advance the team, on the Sunday evening before the test, they already know the next weekend's team. So Jesse would have known that he was captain, and he argues that it would have been, I guess, a bit of a slap in the face for Jesse to be, to suddenly to get the captaincy taken away from him.
100%.
So yeah, I guess in days gone by, it would have been a very strange thing. I mean, if we look back at now, like when John Smith was the Bok captain, or maybe it would have been weird to see him start a test not as captain, But yeah, I think this Bok team is a bit different. They're very open with each other. There's no secrets, and Rassie has spoken about that. When they have team meetings, they're not very keen on putting guys into little rooms and going to discuss little things on the side. They say everything out in the open in front of each other. So I don't think there's any issue there. I don't think Kolisi has an issue with that, and I don't think Jesse Creel would also have an issue. I think you mentioned it earlier in the week that I don't think Jesse wouldn't have bothered him if Kolisi was named captain.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, interesting that Sia himself was the guy who made the call as well, and you can understand it. If you Sia before the 2023 Rugby World Cup, when he was battling with his knee, played a game, one of his comeback games. I think it was a warm-up game before the tournament where he didn't captain as well. Again, his decision going, listen, he's always said I've got to be picked as a player first before I'm a captain. And this is a massive game, and you can understand why a guy who's probably not at optimum fitness wants to focus on nothing other than performance. And as you rightly say, the Spock leadership core is so big now. There's so much depth, and it really is a team effort when it comes to leadership. Another interesting thing that Rassie said after naming the team and the balance of the squad was obviously the 5-3 bench split, but emphasizing the need to almost take New Zealand on at their own game. The Boks can't rely simply on muscle and physicality and an aerial threat to win this. Rassie says if we're going to beat the All Blacks, we need to score 25 plus points, and that's going to mean tries, which means we're going to have some speed and some pace around the park, and not just go back to the traditional style. Do you think, that he's got the matchday 23 to challenge the All Blacks in terms of, moving the ball around the park quickly? And what kind of balance do you see happening between, the traditional Boks strengths and trying to run the All Blacks off the park?
Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted in that sense, because I think this is a game, if they want to win this game, and Nick told that to me as well when he spoke yesterday, he thinks they're going to revert a little bit more back to their old DNA of a traditional type of game. He reckons, and I actually agree with him, that to try and run New Zealand off their feet in this game could be a big mistake. We've seen the Boks leak quite a number of tries against the Wallabies in the last 2 tests that they've played, and that could very easily happen. New Zealand could very quickly rack up 3-4 tries, and then the game's over. So yes, Rassie is correct in when he says that 25 number is probably what they would need to win the game. But I just think it's a game. They've got Handré Pollard at fly half. If they get a chance to kick it goal, they have to take it. The Rugby World Cup final was won by 1 point, and it was won because Pollard kicked all his kicks and the All Blacks missed a few kicks. Richie Munga missed a conversion, and Barrett missed that late penalty. And especially a game of this magnitude, I don't see necessarily a blowout of a 15-plus point win. I think it's going to be very close, and I think goal kicking is going to play a big role. But the Boks have the playmakers. They've picked Kane and Moody at left wing, which I think is a good call. He's obviously going to be a threat in the air, but he's also going to be a threat on attack. He's a strong runner as well. And then Cheslin Colby, we all know what a playmaker he is. Grant Williams is very quick.
You've got Villy that can come into first receiver as well. Villy Leroux at fullback, who loves coming in and being first receiver and moving the ball around. So a lot that lends itself towards the Boks playing a nice running game. But I think, like you say, there is enough there to find that balance, because there is the muscle, there is the accurate kicking, and I think you're going to see a bit of a blend between playing good enterprising stuff and being nice and strong up front.
They can, if you say, on the bench they've got Sasha Feynman, Ngozulu, and Ethan Hooker, 2 very, very good attacking players, and you can expect them to come on late in the game and maybe not play as traditional a type of Bok game as. So they've got the options there, but I think finding the balance between when to attack and when to take your points, and when to be conservative and when to kick for a line out, set up a maul, try and win a penalty at scrum time. I think the balance is going to be key, but I'm sure obviously that is something that they would have spoken about in the week, and it would have been a core focus of the coaching staff. Yeah.
Right, let's go to Auckland, where we have Khanyiso Tshwaku, who's been with both camps this morning. He was at the All Black captain's run, he was at the Springbok captain's run, and he's been spending time with both sides all week. Can you hear me loud and clear, Tshwaks?
Yes, I can. The clear night here in Auckland. Let's hope it remains like this for the entirety of tomorrow. Hopefully, in 24 hours' time, we'll be talking of a Boks success for the first time since 1937, with the weather remaining as dry as it is.
That would be incredible, absolutely. 1937 you mentioned. Tshwaks, you're a man of stats and a rugby encyclopedia yourself. I'm sure you know that the last captain to win at Eden Park, the last Springbok captain to win at Eden Park was one Philip Null, all the way back in 1937, who of course went to Maritzburg College, where Jesse Creel, captain for this weekend, went as well. I mean, you can't really make that up, can you?
No, you can't. But Jesse, at the captain's press conference that took place earlier this afternoon, made it very clear that he doesn't believe in such superstitions. the key part for them is to just show up, play at their best, and make sure that they're actually playing their best rugby. I mean, look, you'll be getting a first sighter of New Zealand's latest midfield star in Billy Proctor, who selection has a bit divided heads in New Zealand. But I mean, with Rico Ioane start 13 fading, I mean, even now, I remember at the two Scott Robertson press conferences on Monday and Thursday, there was a lot of conjecture regarding the selection of Rico Ioane. And Robertson was in pains to defend why he selected him, but New Zealand oddly find themselves with not a lot of depth at wing. I mean, there was a time when New Zealand, for example, just had wings coming off the conveyor belt, but look, they needed to wait on the morning Narawa to be fit. He'll be starting as a way to combat the high ball. Then they would have liked to have Caleb Clark back, but he's got another game in him in the NPC. Most probably, if Rico Ioane has an off day tomorrow, then you'll find that Caleb Clark will be back in for next week's game. So there's a lot riding for the players in particular positions. I mean, New Zealand are down to the fourth and fifth halfbacks in Finley Christie and Carl Preston, who will be on debut should he come on. So look, as much as South Africa are under pressure based on especially what transpired in Australia, New Zealand themselves, and a lot of pressure to atone for what transpired in Buenos Aires against Argentina.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Trucks, whenever the stakes are at their highest, there's someone from Peter Maritzburg to get the Springboks over the line. I think that's the takeaway from all of that. But no, listen, you just said now it's a massive game for South Africa. We've been building up to this for ages. What's at stake in terms of history and being the team to end the 50-match streak of the All Blacks. But give us a sense from being on the ground in Auckland, how big is this game for the All Blacks? I mean, I was reading a piece from Khanyiso Tshwaku, one of our other great rugby writers that we have here, and he was saying, in All Black media outlets at the moment, many of them consider this match likely to define Scott Robertson's tenure as All Blacks coach, certainly up until this point. I mean, does it have that kind of gravity in New Zealand at the moment?
It does. Actually, when I went for breakfast this morning, I stopped by this restaurant and I got a copy of the New Zealand Herald. It has a picture of, a cartoon of Scott Barrett and Jesse Creel, and with New Zealand's run, and it says, "Defend our Eden." And it's got all the results from the August 6, 1994 game against South Africa. They drew 18 all up until the last fixture against the most recent fixture here, where they won their 50th game. In Eden Park, there is a mural just when you enter the tunnel of celebrating New Zealand's 50 matches unbeaten here at Eden Park. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Having lost 2 bites at the World Cup title, lost the Rugby Championship, lost the Freedom Cup, that streak and the Billislow Cup is all they have. Remember that if South Africa win, it's going to be an unprecedented first test win against New Zealand in a row, which will probably swing the scale significantly in South Africa's favor, even though the head-to-head between the sides is pretty vast. But I mean, Scott Robertson will probably become the first New Zealand coach. Not the first New Zealand coach. I do remember Graham Henry losing on the bounce in 2009, but that was against the transcendent Springbok side. He bounced back the following year to win the World Cup, in 2011. But look, I mean, New Zealand rugby is in a state of transition at the moment. Financially, they're not doing well. So look, there's a lot riding, not just for him, but for New Zealand rugby as a whole, especially with next year's tour coming up.
Yeah, it feels like South African rugby is also in somewhat of a state of transition as well. We were talking a bit earlier about, what they tried at Ellis Park in terms of the expansive game, and it backfired a little bit with that loss. They went back to something a bit more familiar and traditional in Cape Town the following week. Is it fair to say that you've got two sides that are in somewhat of a state of transition heading into Saturday?
Very much fair, and one needs to remember that the challenge in South Africa is that they built a whole lot of depth last year. With the view of players being injured, players being off form, that particular state has come. And now it becomes imperative for a lot of those players now to step up. Hendrik Wessels, for example, I mean, South Africa could have done with a Gerhard Steenekamp. It's also Aslaki Kabaganye, who was unfortunately in New Zealand because of the substance issue. And I think they would have significantly changed the makeup of the side. There's the Cameron Hanekom and El Khlo. I mean, El Khlo played a significant role in both test matches in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. And in the absence in the suspension-related absence of a Jasper Visa, he would have actually eased what does look like a mini crisis at number 8, where Sia, despite the issue now, has to fill in number 8, whereas if Elrich Low was for Cameron, Hanekom was for number 8, the number 8 issue doesn't even become a concern to a point where it doesn't even affect the makeup of the bomb squad. I suspect if those two were put in available, the bomb squad would have been a far better option. So look, what has transpired is that now whatever plans that Erasmus had in place to test his depth, the examination has come and it's come forth very fast, especially what transpired in Ellis Park against Australia.
Finally, last one from me, Trucks. Have you had any time or seen the look on Ethan Hooker's face since he was included in the squad for this weekend? It's a massive game for him, and that was probably the one selection that was a little bit surprising. I mean, what's the feeling in the camp around backing Ethan Hooker for such a big one?
Look, he carries a poker face, so he's not as emotional. So look, there's a fair bit of non-emotion with him, but I relate that to the kind of impact that the Cheslin Colby had in 2018 in Wellington, where in his second test match he scored and actually ended up changing the face of South Africa's backline. If you look at the South Africa's backline and its succession plan, there isn't a young number 12 that's standing out. There's two seasoned number 12s, even though they've got a difference in caps in Andre Esterhuizen and Damien Dalinde. But that number 12 positions up for grabs. And sometimes when there's a gap for a player, they need to make that position count. And I think also the important part is that you don't always start in a position that is yours until such time you show that much form for players to make space for him. You look at a Jean de Villiers, for example, he had to start out at 13, then move to spend an extended apprenticeship at wing before moving to centre and making an extended break. So, but we've seen enough from Ethan Hooker at 12, 13, 14 for the Sharks to know that he can operate in all positions. But look, you have to make do of what comes your way in a test match and just operate as well as you can.
Trucks, we're all very jealous. We certainly will be at 9:10 on Saturday morning when you're standing there in front of the haka and the national anthems and enjoying a slice of history, watching the Boks take on the All Blacks tomorrow morning. Enjoy it. We'll be reading your copy. And all the best with the coverage. Back to Mostert in studio just to close. Atsin Korsi, we mentioned him earlier. He's done a great story here that will be appearing on News 24 on Friday afternoon. And he spoke to renowned sports and performance psychologist Dr. Kirsten van Heerden just about the psyche that both sides might be going through going into this game. And the Boks, double world champions, they've won 4 in a row against the All Blacks, but given the Eden Park record and just the fact that it's in New Zealand, the Boks enter this as underdogs. I think that's safe to say. But according to Dr. Khanyiso van Heerden, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In spaces like this, when the stakes are this high, often it's the underdog team who enters an occasion like this with less pressure. And Trucks was just talking now about how much pressure Scott Robertson and the All Blacks are under to keep that record going. Do you think, A, it's safe to say that the Boks are underdogs for this one, and that B, that could work in their favour?
I think they are a little bit underdogs. I don't think that there's a massive gulf in that. I think the fact that the Boks didn't perform too well in the 2 tests against the Wallabies, that definitely makes them underdogs. But then again, the All Blacks have lost their last match against Argentina as well. And like Khanyiso said, there's massive pressure on the All Blacks. They've almost lost everything over the last few years. 2 World Cups where they didn't win. In 2017, they couldn't beat the British Lions. That coincidentally. The final test of that series was a drawn match at Eden Park. I think a lot of people forget that, yes, it's a 50-match win streak, but there was that game in 2017 where they drew with the Lions. So they lost that record. They've lost 4 in a row against the Springboks. They lost the World Cup final to the Springboks. So, but just on current form, I think, and the fact that the All Blacks always tend to bounce back at Eden Park. You can look at matches in the last few years. There was the game where they lost to Argentina in New Zealand. The very next week, they played at Eden Park. They thumped Argentina by a massive score. Yeah, they always seem to rebound at Eden Park, and it is a fortress for them. It's more of a fortress for them than what Ellis Park is for the Springboks. Yeah, their record shows that. But they'll be nervous because it's not the greatest All Black team ever. And their public demands that they are the best in the world, and they're probably not at the moment. But because it's at Eden Park, that makes them slight favourites. But then again, I think the Springboks I wouldn't say they would go in with a nothing to lose mentality, because I mean they are the top team in the world still,
and the rugby championship is still very much wide
Yeah,
open. I mean, there's the small matter of the tournament log that is, it's at this stage any of the 4 teams can still win it. So just in terms of log points, it's a big game.
And mentally, I don't think yes, the Boks haven't won there since 1937, 1994. There was a draw, but I don't think mentally it would affect them too much, because this current crop under Erasmus over the last few years, they've been a team of firsts. They've back-to-back world champions, and in the way the Boks won the previous World Cup, 3 knockout matches which they won with 1 point each, that will give them an awful lot of mental toughness, and so I don't think it's they'll definitely believe that they can win.
Yeah.
But they'll take heart from the fact that the All Blacks are under so much pressure, and therefore I think it's a very tough one to call. Slight favourites because of home ground advantage, but I think it could. Let's hope, like Khanyiso said, the weather looks like it's going to be good, so let's hope it could potentially be the best test of the year.
A team of firsts, as you say, the Boks under Rassie Erasmus since 2018 have achieved pretty much all there is to achieve in rugby, and this is kind of one that's left now them to claim a slice of history and do what no side has been able to do in 50 test matches to beat the All Blacks in Auckland. It's going to be an absolute banger. Of course, on Sunday afternoon, the Springbok women continue their Rugby World Cup campaign. It's been a dream run for Swys de Bruin and the team. They are through to the quarterfinals already. This game against France at 5:45 on Sunday in Northampton is their final pool match. That's just to decide who finishes top of the group. It's the final match of the pool stages, and then they'll be in quarterfinal action the next weekend. We'll be bringing all of that to you on News 24, building up to the women's game, including Eden Park on Saturday morning, and then, of course, all of the reaction. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay tuned to News 24 over the course of the weekend. Enjoy it.